And I want us to focus in on what is in the center. I think it's important that we understand the significance of today and why we're here. And this is really to start what we want to call a tradition of recognizing the significance of the black bodies and the freedom of the black bodies. But before I say anything else, I want to recognize that this land that we're on is land that is borrowed, and I want to acknowledge that. The land that we sit or stand on is indigenous land. And I think it's important for us to begin today as we talk about freedom by acknowledging that and speaking truth to power.
At the stroke of midnight on January 1st, 1863, President Lincoln proclaimed that enslaved people in the Confederate States were forever free. His emancipation order transformed the Civil War from a conflict to save the country into a war to end chattel slavery. During the next 2 years, the Union Army strengthens its ranks with 200,000 black recruits, and on April 3rd, 1865, black men were among the first soldiers to enter and capture the Confederacy capital, Richmond, Virginia. The next day, President Lincoln viewed the city's smoldering ruins. 5 days later, General Robert E. Lee surrendered the Army of Northern Virginia. More troops surrendered before and after President Lincoln's assassination on April 14th. In Texas, the Confederacy collapsed. On June 19, 1865, 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, General Gordon Granger and 2,000 Union soldiers arrived in Galveston to restore order and to enforce Lincoln's executive order. Because some Texans refused to obey it, the end of the Civil War was delayed until 1866, when Texas became the last rebel state to form a new government under the U.S. Constitution. In 1870, Texas formally ratified the 13th Amendment that ended slavery throughout the land and was readmitted to the Union. Professor Henry Louis Gates, Jr. has written that it was hardly the recipe for a celebration, and that's a quote. Yet, black men and women in the Lone Star State, and I quote, had a date to rally around, end quote. And beginning in 1866, another quote, in one of the most inspiring grassroots efforts of the post-Civil War period, they transformed June 19th from a day of unheeded military orders into their own annual right. In 1979, Texas declared Juneteenth a state holiday. It took years for all but 3 states to recognize Juneteenth as the day slavery ended in the United States. Then this week, within 3 days, both houses of Congress passed legislation making Juneteenth our 12th federal holiday, and President Biden signed the bill into law. Today is our first Juneteenth National Independence Day, a day of remembrance and reflection. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jackie. So we want to start, and as you see, we're sitting in a circle. So I want to say welcome to the circle. And we want to start a discussion about Juneteenth. And you'll see some little pieces of paper around the circle, and these are the question prompts that we'll be talking to each other about. So the first question is, what is the significance of Juneteenth for you, either as a community leader or as a community member? And I'm going to start, and we'll go in this direction. For me, I think Juneteenth is important that we recognize the freedom of the black body, but as you can see, I'm wearing a shirt that says free-ish. And I think it's always important that we speak truth to power. There are many black bodies, including mine, that are still not free because of a number of forms of oppression. And I think it's important to say that. Some miles from where we sit and where we stand, there are a number of men, black and brown men, that are imprisoned and that are not free. So we have to also recognize that. And there's a disproportionate amount of black and brown men that are imprisoned. So as we talk about freedom, I have to say that it's significant that we recognize Juneteenth, but it's also significant that for me, that I recognize the lack of freedom that still exists for many black bodies.
The word that comes to mind is finally. And in addition to that, there are a number of symbolic celebrations and symbolic recognitions. This takes us a little, like one step further into a deeper appreciation and a deeper recognition nationally. It's one step, just like Michelle said. It's free-ish. And I hope that this national holiday leads to more people recognizing and acting on deeper levels.
I am aware that there are many people still enslaved, maybe not the same way that it was before Juneteenth, but there still are many, and the Underground Railroad Museum highlights that, and I think it's really important to think of those people that are still enslaved that we benefit from.
My name is Joelle Miano, and I'm a member of the Black Lives Matter Committee at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Plattsburgh. And I'm here to represent that group of people and our congregation in celebrating this day. Just as Michelle talked about free-ish, what we're committed to do as white people is to dig deeply into ourselves and learn more about ourselves and about the systemic racism in our country, so we can better respond to how we behave as individuals, as how we behave as a congregation, and how we relate to each other in the community.
Good morning, I'm Linda Marie Hill. And this is a very emotional question for me to answer, because reflecting, it brings to me all of the suffering and the pain and the hard work that has accumulated through many, many years to bring us to this place in time. I see it as a milestone, a really powerful, potent milestone, but again, it's only a beginning.
Something happened in a meeting yesterday about something in Plattsburgh's past that asked me to ask us as a community, because the question is, what is its significance and what do we want to do? And I think one of the things we shouldn't do is free ourselves. That sounds odd, but we shouldn't free ourselves of the memories or the history of racism in our own community. And for the next Juneteenth, I think I would like to be more informed of things that happened in our community, in Plattsburgh, in Clinton County, in the North Country, since the Emancipation Proclamation, because we do have a past to reckon with, and I'm speaking as a historian. Thank you.
So good morning. My name is Alex Suny. I have the honor of serving as the president at Suny Plattsburgh. And so for me, significance will always begin and end with education. And I'll just have a few things I'd like to put forward today. In basic terms, Juneteenth is truly a commemoration, celebration of the ending of slavery in the United States, and it's a day to celebrate Black liberation in the United States. As we've heard, 156 years ago, the enslaved people of Galveston, Texas were informed that they had been freed by the Emancipation Proclamation, certainly 2 years past the point in which Lincoln had signed that proclamation. The flag you see before us symbolizes in many ways the impact and the importance of Juneteenth. The red, white, and blue correspond to the red, white, and blue of the United States flag. The star in the middle represents the state of Texas, the lone star, the final state to achieve emancipation. And the burst, or the nova around that star, represents potential for the future. And if you notice, the red is in the shape of an arc, and the arc pointing upwards to possibility and a better future. But more deeply, this commemoration represents an important step to acknowledge truth and fact, the foundational pieces of education. We are witnessing a change of real time. Unfortunately, change always happens incrementally, but this provides another opportunity for a national conversation about equity, equality, and the racism that continues to exist. Although there is much celebration with respect to the development of Juneteenth as a national holiday, we must never forget that we still have significant issues around inequity gaps in education, wealth, and healthcare, that we have tremendous challenges with respect to voting rights and voting access, and certainly the continued support for institutional and systemic racism in the United States. So yes, progress is being made, but this needs to be acknowledged, but much more needs to be done. Juneteenth recognizes the moral wrong of chattel slavery as part of the foundational history of the United States. Juneteenth acknowledges the pain and suffering of generations of slaves and their descendants. However, Juneteenth is now a day that marks that in the year 2021, we continue to need to work and strive for equity and equality and to ensure that the tenets of the Emancipation Proclamation are upheld. It's another opportunity to fulfill what was written in 1776 in the Declaration of Independence, and I'll just quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Finally, it is important to remember that Juneteenth is always about truth. We must embrace the truth and elevate education and understanding of the country's past. We must understand the decision that was made 150 years ago to end enslavement and to understand how that decision still impacts the nation today. Put differently, we must always seek the truth and use that knowledge to create an equitable and inclusive society.
So for me, today, the significance of this day, and a lot of what other people have reflected on, is the whitewashing of American history and the idea that a lot of people celebrate the 4th of July and voter rights, but don't realize that not all people had or do have freedom, such as Black women, when women got the right to vote, or Independence Day, that wasn't Independence Day for everyone. And additionally, it reminds me of the importance of amplifying and giving space for Black voices, because from my perspective and based on what I'm listening to, if the federal government doesn't change police reform and laws and the system that Black individuals don't trust and can't trust, then this is just gaslighting. So I think there's a lot of work left to do.
Thank you, Butterfly. Hello, everyone. I'm Sean Rice. I'm the coordinator of multicultural initiatives at Suny Plattsburgh, and I believe that this day signifies reflection. It signifies a point of really understanding. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, let's try that again. Hey, everyone. I'm Sean Rice. I'm the coordinator of multicultural initiatives at Suny Plattsburgh, and I feel that this day really represents a point of reflection. It celebrates the fact that we understand where we came from and where we're going to go. We always have to have that point of understanding our points of struggle, our points of overcoming and triumphant opportunities.
So as things started unfolding over the last few years, I realized the significance of this, but at the same time, I think as some of you were saying, it's sort of a complicated thing to celebrate because in this country, the celebration, other than the European bias that is built into our education system, to our governmental system, to our policies, it's really a challenging thing to do. And I think the invocation of a higher power is always complicated too, because I don't know. In response to that comment there, I came in as you were finishing speaking, Michelle. The significance as a member of this community is that it's important that in this community, which is so predominantly white, that some of these issues get played out and discussed openly, because I think it's a really difficult thing to face. It's also a really difficult thing to talk about. But I think if we are to continue to grow as people, as human beings in this community, we need to be able to talk about it. And we need to be able to find spaces to talk about it, because then this holiday or this celebration or this marking of this date then it can bring about change. Otherwise, it's hot dogs and picnics and a bunch of little flags. And I think that's cute, but it doesn't really resolve the issue, because this is a systemic issue. It's been around for a very long time. And until it's faced, it won't transform anything.
The significance of this day and this celebration is, I have to acknowledge being the first African American mayor of our city, and that in years past, I don't think I personally would have thought we'd ever see that, let alone see the struggle of black and brown people in the U.S. be acknowledged with a commemoration or a holiday in that sense. But the significance of this for me also goes to our community. We celebrate 4th of July every year with cute flags and parades. We celebrate the Battle of Plattsburgh every year, but we don't celebrate the Underground Railroad. We don't celebrate the importance of our Native American brothers and sisters in the battle that we fought. And so I hope for my community, for our community, that we can incorporate that, turn a page, and create this as a significant milestone for Northland, for our region, for our city, for our town. And just look around here, just looking around at this circle, at our community coming together, I believe is maybe just the first step.
I have taught in the past a course at Suny Plattsburgh called North Star, but it was previously called Z-Plat. And a few years ago, my students came to me and they asked to change the name of the magazine that they make, because they on their own had done a little research into the history of Zephaniah Platt and who he was as a man and what he did. And I will add to that who he owned. And so they changed the name of the magazine to North Star. At that time, I was working with Jackie at the museum, and I recommended that name, and they liked it. So I urge you here, as citizens of this city and possibly employees of this university, to investigate on your own. Who was Zephaniah Platt, the man for which your town is named? And is that an appropriate name for your town? And do you think ever that maybe there could be a charter or some kind of movement to change that name to reflect your values and Juneteenth and Black Lives Matter and all that we're here to celebrate today? Thank you.
I have taught in a prison with many of the black and brown people for 20 years, and I did not speak up every time that someone was disparaged. But I learned to do it, and I think it's important that we all do. So, yes, I have a lot of flaws, but I feel that these are the types of things that we need to do in order to make a better community and to actually bring the freedom that's needed to our brothers and sisters.
My discussion really is around one word. I think that one thing that all of us can do is to learn to respect each other as humans and not focus so much on colors. Because actually, if you think about it, who really is black and who is really white? We're various shades of colors, and so I think if we learn to respect each other, then we can perhaps move forward and see each other as human beings.
I'm Mary Skillen, and I am the Director of Campus Ministry at St. John the 23rd Newman Center. And we're very proud to have been part of the Martin Luther King celebrations all these years. I'm the first to tell people I'm a little naive and innocent in some ways. I knew inequity still existed. But it was the Instagram incident on the campus 3 years ago, and then sadly the murder of George Floyd that really made me open my eyes and realize things have not gotten better. And I grew up in the 60s. I thought it was bad then, but this has got to be. My hope is that by this gathering and the people here that we are just beginning the process of trying to eliminate the inequities that still exist in our community and nationwide.
Michael Cashman, Plattsburgh Town Supervisor. I want to try to provide a different perspective just because I think a lot of our thoughts and feelings are the same, right? I mean, so I throw this into the ether of this group. Today is about remembrance and reflection, but it's about leaning into it. It's about leaning into it, really understanding, listening, learning, and leading from the energy that comes from that. And I would agree, Clinton County, the town, the city, the North Country, and our country all have things that we need to reckon with. But I want to give us a goalpost or something to aspire to, because I believe our region does it very well with the Martin Luther King Commission. Okay? I would love to see more people participate, but it heartens me that in the blistering cold days of winter, people come out from their homes to join in community, to listen, to learn, and to lead. And the thing that I've really taken and reflect on often is Dr. King's word is anybody can serve. Anybody can serve, but equally, anybody can learn. And that's what's needed right now. Anyone can learn. So lean in, learn more, and let's lead our community together. Thank you for being here, everybody.
Good morning. My name is Maxine Perry, and I am the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission and ex-chair of the Martin Luther King Commission. Today, I think a lot of people had some good information to share, and I won't go into that, but some of the things I was going to say has already been said, and I think it's wonderful. But as I reflect back on the struggle that people went through and the sacrifices they endured, it should catapult us into wanting to do better and work with each other. And we don't do the same sacrifices, but in our hearts we cry because of the inequality of a lot of our people. So I just want to say thank you for the president and Michelle for bringing this to the community. And I hope everybody has learned something and will share with us in our Martin Luther King celebration. I don't plan to be here this year, but I'm hoping you will come out and support. And we do 2 scholarships for that program, and hoping you will help us out with that. Thank you and have a great day.
So my name is Mac Oliver Lane. I'm actually a senior in Suny Plattsburgh studying political science. I'll say it's actually a very big turnout with this whole event because I've always seen like Michelle Carpentier and President of Plattsburgh and Dr. Nietti have posted like diversity and inclusion related events that have like probably like a handful of students, but I guess since I might be the only student here. No, actually there's like around like 37 or so students in Mason Hall for a summer, but I guess I didn't really heard too much about this event. But one thing I would say in relevance of this event is that it's actually very good that all of us as a community is like sitting over here acknowledging Juneteenth as like a holiday for African Americans that are like probably, as everyone have mentioned, as a theme that is not completely free in this state or in this nation. I feel like as a community and as like American citizens, we should at least like make our representatives accountable. If it's like local, state, federal representatives accountable. Which one thing is, as an example, is as last year New York State has actually acknowledged and made Juneteenth as a state holiday from last legislative session. For the federal government, it took them at least like a year or so later, as Joe Biden signed the Juneteenth bill back in, it was Wednesday, or yeah, it was actually Thursday, yeah. Which is actually very good for the federal government, at least stand up. But of course, as everyone said in this circles, that's actually the first, like one of like the first of many steps that the nation has to take. But I feel like we should do like a little bit more work of addressing this issue, like diversity issues, and also issues when it comes to like Asian American communities and also voter rights. So thank you very much for this event.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Legita Scott Williams. First, I'd like to recognize and appreciate everyone that is in the circle and is out in the community in support today. I'd like to recognize those that put on the event because it says a lot. It shows that Plattsburgh and the community in Plattsburgh is trying to take steps forward. It's not going to be a race, it's a journey, and so things take time. But the more we come together, the more that we celebrate, the more that we remember and we speak and we reflect, the more we're going to make progress. For me, when I think about Juneteenth, it's emotional because I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. And so we've celebrated Juneteenth, I remember back in my elementary school years. And I remember with my great-grandfather and my grandmother, and it was a time of celebration. But not just celebration, it was a time of remembrance, it was a time of reflection, it was a time of family, of community. And back home, as the young lady said, it's a time of celebration. And so when you're doing that, we are giving history, we are speaking of the past, we are giving African proverbs, we are saying why we chose those proverbs. It's a time of you're doing self-improvement, again, reflection, economic unity. There's a lot of events that are going on back home today in celebration of this holiday. And if we think about it, it's been 40 years since we had a new federal holiday, and there's a significance of the 40 as well. You know, you're 40 acres and a mule, so you think about it, and for this to happen 40 years since the last national holiday, that says a lot. I'm part of the community, and I am here to again embrace one another, to celebrate, and to help this journey move forward.
Can you feel the energy of positive change, the gathering energy of positive change? The indigenous people and cultures around the world share a prophecy about this time in the evolution of humanity, a time of coming together, a time of unity, a time of the family of humanity living in peace, equity, justice, compassion. But yet, the words of Dickens still echo in our ears. This is the best of times, but it is also the worst of times. However, as we work together to move forward out of the morass of lies, suffering, and injustices, please join me in affirming the following blessings with the response, "May it be so." We are being asked to balance the best and the worst, the light and the darkness, the hope and despair. May we embrace with compassion the worst, the darkness, and the despair, to repair and restore our fragmented whole. May it be so. May we be the bearers and sharers of the best, the light, and the hope, magnifying their power and influence. May it be so. May we learn to trust our inner wisdom. May it be so. May we teach our children to trust their inner wisdom and integrity, their essential goodness. May it be so. May we teach our children to be good stewards of the land, and to be aware of that are going on around them. May it be so. May we be vessels of hope, inspiring others to believe in optimum outcomes and possibilities. May it be so. As our celebration comes to a close, let us offer great gratitude to those who built the foundation for Juneteenth to be established. Amen.